Coming up, the latest on Brexit. And after 2 weeks sitting on his desk as number 10 choreographed the best time and method to announce it, Rishi Sunak's New Deal removes some creases from the Northern Ireland Brexit balls-up. Meaning pets can once again cross the Irish Sea without a passport. The UK can once again participate in the Horizon programme of cross-border scientific cooperation, and a so-called Green Lane eases the Brexit checkpoints for UK goods destined for consumption in Northern Ireland. But this minor rollback of a tiny part of the damage caused by leaving the single market and customs union still leaves Britain, to all intents and purposes, as damaged as ever by the Brexit. But does this new deal mean that Brexit is now eventually done? The short answer is no. The longer answer? Stay tuned. If you enjoy watching the Truth to Power channel, I'd really appreciate it if you'd take a moment to hit the like button, subscribe, and above all, share a link to this video with your friends and social media contacts. The unionist parties in Northern Ireland say that there have been unacceptable price rises for British goods in the province since the Brexit. But economic modelling shows that the protocol has actually improved Northern Ireland's economic performance. Output is forecast to rise by 2.2% more than if there had been no Brexit, against a fall in the rest of the UK of 4%. If Sunak wasn't the weak, pathetic figure he is, he would be forcing this fact down the throats of the unionists. But because of Sunak's doublethink on the Brexit, he doesn't dare do that because he knows it demonstrates categorically how much better off the whole UK would have been had it stayed in the single market. The Brexit cult in Sunak's Tory party just keep demanding an ever harder and ever purer Brexit. Even people like the odious Brexitist cheerleader Daniel Hannan now confess that joining the European Free Trade Association or staying in the single market were much better options than the Brexit they actually ended up with. But the remaining members of the Brexitist cult are mainly still in denial about Brexit's damage, so they have to keep raging against how this Brexit is not the Brexit that they voted for. Those of us that wish to remain in the EU and would like to see us rejoin in due course are often referred to as Remoaners by the few remaining unrepentant Leave voters. This is a distortion of reality in which it is the Brexitists who are the ones who are forever moaning. Brexit itself was the bastard child of a section of society who did nothing but moan about the state of the country, laying the blame for all their dissatisfaction at the door of the European Union. Since Brexit, they've continued to moan. It's Brexit in name only. Brino, they rage. It's a Remainers Brexit, a contradiction in terms. And also, they moan that we're not separated from the EU as something Northern Ireland Protocol something. Rishi Sunak's problems with the new so-called Windsor deal are actually twofold, but both arise from the fact that the die-hard Brexitists are in fact Bremoners, if you like. First of all, despite all the verbal trickery, the fact is that Sunak's New Deal basically overlays the old protocol but doesn't actually replace it. The protocol lives on, with the European Court of Justice having ultimate power. Sure, Stormont is given a say in future EU laws affecting it and can even apply a brake with the agreement of Westminster, but it doesn't have a veto. That's something Boris Alexander de Pfeffel Johnson and his not-so-merry band of Bremoners can bitch about in an attempt to exact his revenge on his backstabbing nemesis Sunak. And the second problem for Sunak is also due to the extreme Brexitists in his party, who have an addiction to moaning. They really don't want this deal to work, else they have nothing left to moan about. Some Tories have committed themselves so completely to casting the EU as the enemy that they find it hard to imagine life without the conflict. Other senior members or ex-senior members of the government are hooked on the celebrity that their purist stance on the Brexit has brought them. In what other world do David Frost, Johnson himself or Jacob Rees-Mogg suddenly become important men of consequence? It's bizarre. The paradox of the Brexit is that as long as the Northern Ireland situation was unresolved, they and the other Brexitists still had something to moan about. They could still paint the EU as the enemy that was robbing us of sovereignty, whatever that actually means to these sad individuals. But until now, their anger and outrage could be channeled into Euro bashing. But with Sunak's deal winning widespread approval, the ERG, De Pfeffel and the DUP may all have been routed. John Crace, writing in The Guardian, had this to say about Sunak's statement to the House of Commons. Tory MPs from all sides of the party cheered and waved their order papers as he entered the chamber. Consensus had broken out. It had all been the fault of the convict, Boris Johnson. They couldn't believe they had allowed themselves to be duped by such an obvious fraudster. It's actually rank hypocrisy, though, for Sunak to claim this deal allowing Northern Ireland unfettered access to the EU single market is a victory, while at the same time claiming to still believe in the merits of the hard Brexit forced on Britain. Rishi, if being in the single market is so good for Northern Ireland, why not let Britain have some of that too? Sunak boasts that Northern Ireland enjoys a very special position in the EU single market and that this privilege makes it a magnet for investment. But by boasting about the benefit of membership for one nation of the United Kingdom, he's blatantly admitting to the cost incurred by excluding the other three. And that in itself implies that membership of the single market must be a rational ambition going forward for England, Scotland and Wales too. If the Northern Ireland question has been settled by the Windsor Agreement, then Northern Ireland ceases to be a distraction from the Brexit as a whole. And perhaps we can start the long and arduous process of undoing Brexit through grown-up diplomacy with the EU. I give Sunak zero credit for diffusing the hand grenade of a deal that Boris Johnson left behind. It's the bare minimum you'd expect from any non-Brexitist cult politician taking over from the situation where Johnson and the ludicrous David Frosty the No Man were just shouting at the foreigners in that horrible blustery fashion that the gammons adopt when they're on their holidays abroad. And even though it appears that the deal protects the Good Friday Agreement and avoids an overt trade war with our biggest trading partner, let's not forget that other Brexit hand grenades are about to have their pins pulled out. Like Jacob Rees-Mogg's ideologically fuelled Retained EU Law Revocation and Reform Bill, which gives ministers arbitrary powers to abolish about 4,000 regulations on food, safety and the environment without consultation or votes in a parliament that was meant to be sovereign thanks to the Brexit. Just one more bit of Brexit bullshit, of course. Abolishing these regulations, which were all either proposed or readily supported by the UK within the European Union, will make EU trade increasingly difficult as we diverge from their minimum standards. So don't be fooled for 1 minute that the chicanery of the Windsor Agreement will undo the monumental self-harm of the Brexit, which is set to get exponentially worse with the bonfire of regulations scheduled for the end of this year, 2023. I'll start to give Sunak some credit if he 1. Scuppers Rees-Mogg's dangerous and harmful bill, 2. Starts apologising for the Brexit that he himself supported and campaigned for and calls it out for the disaster it has been, and 3. Once he stops referring to the will of the people in 2016, which we now know was influenced by lies, cheating, and probably, if they bothered to check, Russian interference, and that's according to the House of Commons' own Russia report. In fact, even without the cheating, let's be honest, there are certain complex issues that should never be decided by referenda, and the Brexit was one of them. Such a complicated decision should never have been put to an uninformed and politically unaware electorate indoctrinated by years of reading the Daily Mail and the Murdoch press and influenced by the likes of the xenophobic Farage and his ilk, who are still inexplicably given frequent primetime platforms on the BBC, Sky and the like. No wonder the electorate made a decision they've come to regret. And the proof of that regret is shown by poll after poll, showing the electorate's feelings about the real-world results of the Brexit and the non-appearance of the sunlit uplands. Leave voters were conned by the Brexitists into believing they were voting against brown people coming into the country, voting against millions of pounds being sent every week to fund EU corruption, and voting to make Britain great again. Funnily enough, the issues facing Northern Ireland were never mentioned by the Brexitists. Not one word about the Good Friday Agreement appeared on the Brexit bus. Brexit means Brexit, said Theresa May. A ludicrous statement. What she should have said is Brexit means managing the relationship with our largest trading partner and closest political ally, the European Union. By that definition, the slogan, "Get Brexit Done," is equally ludicrous. Brexit, the ongoing management of the UK-EU relationship, will never be done. But Brexitism, that horrible confrontational form of politics carried out by the Brexitists, that fight to the death with reality, well, that does appear to be done with. Now, the long and arduous process of rebuilding an ever closer relationship with the EU can actually begin.
Welcome to the Brexit, sir. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.